Something unusual is forming inside Aston Martin's 2026 project, and Fernando Alonso can sense it before the stopwatch shows anything. Not in lap times, not in headlines, but in the quiet technical signals that usually appear right before Formula One changes direction. Because when a driver who has raced through multiple regulation eras suddenly sounds patient instead of desperate, the paddock pays attention. And right now, Alonso isn't chasing hope. He's watching structure, and that difference could decide the entire 2026 championship before the first race even begins. This matters more than most fans realize, because 2026 isn't just another season reset. It's one of the biggest technical revolutions in modern Formula One history. Completely new aerodynamic philosophy. A radically redesigned power unit balance with far greater electrical deployment, different cooling demands, different weight distribution, different energy recovery strategy. In past eras, changes of this scale didn't just shuffle the grid, they created new dynasties overnight. Brawn in 2009, Red Bull in 2010, Mercedes in 2014. Each time, the favourite before the rule change was not the team that dominated after it. And that historical pattern is exactly why Alonso's quiet confidence feels so dangerous. Because inside Aston Martin, this isn't being treated like a normal upgrade cycle. It's being treated like a long-term competitive reset aimed directly at the new rules era. Massive investment in infrastructure, a new wind tunnel finally operational, expanded engineering departments, aggressive recruitment from rival top teams, and above all, the arrival of Adrian Newey, the most successful aerodynamic designer in Formula One history, responsible for title-winning cars across 3 separate decades. That alone changes the psychological balance of the grid, because Newey doesn't just improve cars, he tends to appear exactly when regulations create hidden opportunity. That's insane. Let that sink in. And this is where Alonso's tone becomes the real story. He isn't promising victories. He isn't making headlines. He's doing something far more unsettling for rivals. He's sounding calm. Calm in Formula One rarely means nothing. It usually means something is building underneath. If you follow the timeline carefully, Aston Martin's strategy starts to look deliberate. Their biggest infrastructure spending wasn't aimed at 2024 or 2025 results. It aligns almost perfectly with the 2026 regulation window, meaning this project may have been planned years in advance, not for improvement, but for arrival. And here's the detail most people missed. Every dominant F1 era begins with one team interpreting new rules differently from everyone else. Not slightly differently, fundamentally differently. And that interpretation gap is where championships are born. So the real question forming now isn't whether Aston Martin improves. It's whether they've already found a concept advantage nobody else fully understands yet. Because if that happens, history says the rest of the grid could spend years chasing. But here's where tension rises. Expectation still sits on Red Bull, Mercedes, and Ferrari. They are supposed to win. They carry pressure. And pressure inside a new rule era often leads to conservative decisions, while the most dangerous breakthroughs usually come from teams with less to lose. Ask yourself honestly, what if Aston Martin enters 2026 not as an outsider, but as the best prepared team for the new physics of Formula One? That possibility alone explains why Alonso sounds different, because Alonso has driven championship-winning machinery. He knows how a fast car feels before results prove it. Drivers of his experience can sense aerodynamic stability, balance consistency, and energy deployment harmony long before qualifying sessions reveal the truth. And when those sensations appear early in a project, they usually mean something real. But here's the twist nobody is talking about. Newey's greatest strength isn't raw downforce, it's rule interpretation under uncertainty. The exact moment when regulations are unclear, simulations are imperfect, and creativity matters more than optimization. That's historically when Newey becomes most dangerous, and 2026 might be the perfect environment for that pattern to repeat. Now compare this situation to rival teams. Red Bull is entering a new era without Newey leading the project, while also transitioning power unit structure toward a new in-house future. Mercedes must recover from years of concept instability since ground effect regulations began. Ferrari continues restructuring leadership and technical direction. Every top team carries some level of uncertainty. And uncertainty is where surprise contenders emerge. This is where suspense truly begins. Because Formula One revolutions don't announce themselves immediately. They appear slowly, then suddenly feel inevitable. Midway through this story, psychology becomes just as important as engineering, because pressure in 2026 will sit heaviest on teams expected to dominate, and when expectation meets unfamiliar regulations, mistakes multiply. Development paths diverge. Championship momentum forms earlier than anyone expects. So tell me your honest prediction in the comments. No safe answers. Could Aston Martin genuinely fight for the 2026 world title? Or is this optimism arriving too soon? Because Alonso's personal timeline adds another emotional layer. This isn't just about a team project, it's about time running out. Drivers nearing the final phase of their careers don't believe in dreams. They believe in evidence. And if Alonso sounds convinced something special is forming, that signal alone is powerful. But the deeper implication is even bigger. If Aston Martin becomes competitive early in the new era, development momentum could lock the grid for multiple seasons. We've seen this before. Once Mercedes mastered hybrid rules, the dominance lasted nearly a decade. Once Red Bull solved ground effect aerodynamics, rivals struggled to close the gap quickly. First mover advantage in Formula One is brutally difficult to erase, which means Alonso's belief isn't just about one season, it's about the shape of the next era. And here's the suspenseful part. Right now, there is no proof Aston Martin will dominate. Only signals, only preparation, only belief. But every past F1 dynasty began exactly the same way, with small signs most fans ignored. That's what makes this moment fascinating. We might be watching the very beginning of something historic without realizing it yet, because by the time lap times confirm the truth, the championship fight may already be decided. So the real question isn't whether Aston Martin can shock Formula One, it's whether the shock has already started quietly behind the scenes. And if history repeats the way it often does, 2026 may not belong to the teams everyone expects today. Stay sharp, because the next hidden power shift forming on the grid might be closer than it appears. And if you want to understand the rival project already trying to stop Aston Martin before the first race even begins, watch the next video on your screen now, because Alonso isn't just chasing one last victory, he might be standing at the edge of Formula One's next great era, and we're about to find out whether the rest of the world is ready for it.